Get to know the people behind the synth.
Welcome to Behind the Synth. Today, just here with Nate and special guest. Very excited to have the very talented and creative Nahre Soul. Nahre, welcome to Behind the Synth.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a rare kind of rainy Southern California day here today, but bright and rainbowy inside the synth space.
A perfect synth day.
Yeah. So for people who don't know about you, I discovered you online. I'd seen some stuff on Instagram and on YouTube you did, and you were playing Reface in various locations.
Yes, I was.
And then I think a few months ago we struck up a conversation, and we did some stuff with the CP, and you started making some videos, and you happened to be out visiting, and so here we are today.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and how you got into music and that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, I come from a classical music background. I've always studied piano performance since I was younger, and I went to different schools that specialized in that throughout high school and college, postgraduate. And throughout my musical journey, I was always interested in piano composition, or just composition in general. But the older I got, the more interested I became in writing my own music, exploring other genres, exploring things related to improvisation, especially. And I wanted to capture all of that in a relevant way. And being a millennial, to me, it was kind of second nature to me to take out the camera and put it into video form, which is why I started making videos. I started uploading them to YouTube, and I basically just capture everything that I'm involved with in terms of music, everything that I'm experimenting with, all the ups and downs, anything that I find interesting and new to me, and anything that I'm learning. So in the past 2 years since I started, I've been able to show a lot of explorations about genres and about different composers, different composition styles. And one tool that I used quite often, and I still do, but I did way more during the first year, was the Yamaha Reface, because it's portable. Yeah. And my lifestyle has always been, for the past few years, quite on the go, mobile. I moved 13 times in the last 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and finding an instrument is always a difficult thing, especially as a pianist. But it's also not as difficult as some certain other instruments, because a lot of places have pianos.
Sure.
But still, just the idea of having a portable instrument was such a novel thing to me, and so exciting. So when I found that keyboard and started using it, I was super excited. And I just use it in a way that I think suits the film form, because the visual aspect of creating something is super important. And if I can take an instrument, being a pianist, and not having access to a portable, grand piano, I can just take this on the train to the park and record it. And I had so much fun with that. And
so
it's inspiring.
You were just playing the CP80. Now that was designed to be a portable grand piano.
That's portable?
That's not going to work. That 300-pound instrument isn't going to work for you.
Yeah. No, it could be my carry-on.
Oh, okay, there you go. Carry on. I think what I found really not just interesting but engaging about the content you make is that you're kind of bringing together a lot of on the surface what would seem like disparate things. So you have this kind of traditional piano background with a classical, I would say, influence, I suppose. You probably had to learn a lot of classical repertoire, but then you're into improvisation, which is great. And then, along with the classical nature of it, and maybe the analog, quote unquote, nature of the piano, you're into this really cool video production. Not just the look is amazing, but each of your videos has a cool story. So you're telling you're putting all these really creative things together. Like, Was that a conscious effort, or is it just like this just feels natural?
It's, I think, a little bit of both. I've gone through periods of time, especially as a student, where I was really frustrated in terms of feeling just a little lost for the future, because when you're in a conservatory environment where everything is very tunnel visioned, and for good reason, everything is focused, and your interests and your time spent in studying a certain subject regarding music it's very narrow. And I always knew that my interests were were quite varied and expanded way beyond just classical piano performance. So I felt a little holed up, a little just frustrated, and I didn't know how I would fit in. So for the longest time, I just thought, okay, I need to just bear down and fit into what is required of me to have some sort of career or something in the music world. But then once I graduated, I had a period where I just took some time away from music to figure things out. And I've always known that I love photography. I worked as a freelance photographer for a while. And I always knew that I was interested in creating something beyond, focusing on interpretation regarding a piece of music. So I just sat there and daydreamed and thought maybe there's something out there that doesn't involve, that involves actually music, piano, visuals, design, a sense of storytelling, something personal, all of that within one job, maybe. But I had no idea that would be what I'm doing today. And I actually, to be honest, I still don't know if that's what I'm doing today. I've just been going with the flow for the last 2 years. Everything is quite new to me. But you asked if it was intentional or it just kind of happened. It's a little bit of both. I was aware of my scattered interests. And I'm just always trying to figure out a way not to mold it into something else, but to mold what I do around it.
So just going back to your piano side, I was always wondered, like, as someone maybe doing classical piano, like you've studied that, and then you're not in a study mode anymore. You're in a, I'm part of life and the workforce. What is it? What sort of gigs present themselves? What sort of opportunities? What ways do you have to perform or, present your art to people as more of a classical pianist?
As a classical pianist, currently?
Yeah, sure.
That's I don't know. I'm not sure how I would answer that, because in the past year and a half, I've been transitioning from, I would say, a pianist that deals more with the classical repertoire to just my own material. So the gigs that I get, either to play, record, perform, they have been involving just my music more and more.
Okay.
And consciously since March of this year, I put a break in terms of taking any gigs for the stage and travel gigs like that, just so that I could regroup and kind of figure out where do I want to take all of this? What is it that I want to do and create with music, with videos. While this year I took on a job as a co-host of a music show for PBS.
Oh, cool.
Which is why this was the perfect period to just put a break on performing. So next year, to answer your question, I think it'll involve both. I'd love to present original material, whether it's something created with extra musical things, other media, or just music that can serve as an educational event or an educational piece of content, while showcasing something that is new and original, relevant to today and what I'm creating today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that interest comes from my interest in integrating something new, whether it's improvised or written, with the old tradition, you know, studying the great legendary composers. And maybe I love dialoguing with that material in whatever way. And you see it in the videos. I would really just study one composer and I would break down their style and then create something new today, as if just a reimagined way of something that they would write, that sort of thing, with that theme. But I would love to do something that just, again, mixes multiple aspects of music, whether it's classical music, improvisation, new works.
How did you get started in improvisation? Like, how did you say, I can just make up my own thing here? How did that get started?
I think I was always slightly inclined to improvise while writing something. But I think it's quite different when you're improvising in the context of trying to come up with something that you will deliberately write down versus improvising something and just leaving it at that. And that, the latter, I was not familiar with until quite recently. And I would say maybe about 3 years ago, I went to my first jazz jam session, just as a listener.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to a jam. And I was just thinking, I had a million questions. First of all, I was like, how do you guys know what to play? What are you playing? You guys are just kind of nodding at each other. Someone plays a few chords and the other drummer says, oh yeah. And then the pianist says, okay. And then they jam for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how do you know what to play? How do you know when to play? And I had a conversation with a bass player. I remember this so vividly afterwards. And I said, how are you guys doing that? You know, that's so cool. Can I learn how to do that? And he actually said, no. Not a hard no, but he told me, most likely not. I mean, you've spent your whole life as a classical musician, and in order to improvise like this, you have to be a part of this culture and be exposed to this since you were young, and it's just a different way of approaching music. So I remember on my way home that night, I just thought, why does that bother me? That answer bothered me.
Don't tell me I can't do
that. I don't know. That just bothered me. And but more than, I mean, joking aside, I just thought, what is this? What are they talking about? What is it that I'm curious about? Mm-hmm. And so then I just started to ask a bunch of friends around me that I knew were involved with jazz. I watched a lot of YouTube to understand, different surface things about jazz or other genres that involve improvisation. And then I just kind of experimented on my own. Really nothing with structure until quite recently. Still not recently, but I only say structure because now I allot a certain amount of time every day or every week where I just focus on improvisation, and maybe I'll improvise over a form, that sort of thing. But in the beginning, I just thought, okay, well, why don't I imagine myself writing something in the moment? What would that be like? And, a lot of it was very awkward in the beginning, because I will say, as a classical musician, and I think a lot of people may agree with me, it's quite awkward to shift over from being so dependent on a blueprint, a score, to knowing and feeling like it's okay, and giving yourself the permission and the freedom to create something very separate from anything that is written out for you. It's super hard. And if when I talk to people that have improvised their whole lives and are familiar with it, it seems a lot of people may not understand how difficult that is.
Yeah.
But it is. And I definitely went through the period where I was just adjusting to that discomfort. And I'm naturally a shy person. So to present, even to myself, even when I'm the only person in the room, present an idea that I'm presenting to myself as these are my thoughts. These are my musical thoughts.
Yeah. It's vulnerability,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. That's the word. So it was quite uncomfortable. But now I've learned to embrace that. And I think it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is missing in the classical music world, because to me, improvisation is something that makes music creation in the moment alive. And yeah, in the moment, it's super present.
Yeah.
And of course, interpretation of classical pieces and contemporary pieces that are written out that don't involve improvisation, that is, of course, in the moment and all of that, but it's very different. And I like I said, I think it's the missing link.
I think it's funny that that's missing, because as I recall from my music school studies, I remember a story. I was taking some counterpoint class, and of course it's all based on J.S. Bach and his counterpoint, and we're studying different species counterpoint, and the instructor at one point said something really amazing to me. He goes, a lot of Bach's work we don't even have any idea about, because he would just make it up. He didn't have time to write out all of this. The ones we have, those are the ones he had time to actually notate. And remember, J.S. Bach wasn't as famous as even his sons during his time. But so you're sitting there, I'm in the second semester of this counterpoint class, which is not the most thrilling sort of thing, and they're just rule after rule, and don't do this, and no parallel fifths, and blah blah, and this and that, and it's like, and I'm sitting there thinking, so Bach was like conscious of this the entire time, and then like right as I had that thought, the teacher said, and Bach wasn't probably even thinking about these rules at all, and he was breaking his own rules all the time anyhow, but it's just we still base it off of this because this was his mind, and we've done this analysis. So but it's interesting, all of that material he basically made up because I got to do my church gig. Gig. I don't have time to write a chart.
Improvisation was a huge part of the musical culture back then. It's only the last couple centuries that improvisation has drifted away from, maybe not even couple centuries, quite recently, where everything has become much more specialized. So there are the composers, and there are the performers, and improvisation, which often was a practice of composers that performed, that has slowly drifted away from classical music performance. I do see it coming back, though, for sure, which is great. And hopefully in a tiny way, I'm encouraging that myself with the stuff I put out and the things that I encourage to the people that view videos that I post. But I really believe in not just improvisation, but creating something on your own, whether it's writing, simple experiments, diversion while you're practicing. That's all that is needed to create something completely original and independent, and something that's your own while you're playing and learning music. And adding that element, I think, just adds life, adds something personal to what you're doing. And it helps you understand it as well.
Sure.
From a pedagogic perspective, I really think that when you reverse engineer something, even when you're dealing with something that is written out, and you say, okay, how was this written? What if I were to write something like this or improvise something like this? How would that come about? You learn a lot. through that process. So I encourage it.
Yeah, I remember there's another story about Wayne Shorter, the jazz composer and musician, and Wayne used to constantly write. In fact, he went through a period where he wrote a tune a day. Didn't matter if it was good.
Really?
It just, he made that his discipline in an effort to find his writing voice.
Okay.
And so I think, like what you're saying, improvising and documenting it and going back and reviewing it, like you may say you're shy, but to me, that's very brave to okay, what's wrong? And then what's the good bit I'm going to extract from this,
Yeah, I'm shy, but I'm not afraid to make a fool out of myself or realize how foolish something is, or how just the not so pretty, the uglier bits of reality, or things that maybe I don't want to see of myself. Anything that makes me uncomfortable, I like to kind of lean into, just because it makes me uncomfortable, just to get rid of that uncomfortable feeling.
Sure.
And I think that's just become a habit. But it is very, that being said, it is very uncomfortable. I will say many times when I'm editing something, or I film myself all the time. It's just kind of a tool for me. It's a feedback tool.
Yeah.
Because, I'm working by myself all day pretty much. And I need some kind of feedback mechanism to just be aware of what I'm doing, what's working, what's not working. But when I'm editing and reviewing things that I was working on that day or recently, a lot of times, as I'm learning, it's uncomfortable. Just thinking, oh man,
but that's
a long way to go.
Yeah, but I think in the end, that's what makes your videos engaging, because there's that realism. They can't all be over processed perfection.
Yeah.
And
I just try to keep it, like you said, real. Of course, with editing, there are things that can be done, and I do to just make something extra exciting or extra real in bits. Like, say, an intro of a video. Maybe the cuts will be faster. Maybe I'll add in animation here just to make it visually interesting, things like that. But the overall essence of what I'm showing is just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
In many ways, not just musically. I just show it. This is what I'm going through musically, and I got over being too precious about what I post earlier on, because of a simple thought. I just thought, oh, you know what? Actually, no one really cares. No one really cares as much as I think that they do, and as much as I care. And people are busy living their lives, doing their own thing. I'm doing my own thing. I'm simply choosing to post something and show, take the time to, of course, refine certain edges so that I'm not wasting people's time when they choose to click a video or something. And then I just present it, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's one of the videos you did where you were improvising. I think it was with the CP, and you kept annotating your improvisation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is a good idea. This one doesn't work. Yeah. This, and now we're back into a good idea again. Like, like I watched that over and over. And go, that's so real. You know?
Yeah.
It's like you're kind of just.
It is what it is.
Like you're dictating what was in your head,
totally.
and that was cool to be that sensitive about it. Like I'm just doing my thing.
Yeah, and a lot of it is me just transcribing thoughts in my head as I'm reviewing the footage. So a lot of times when I'm making a video, I'll have twice the amount of footage that was shot before it's pared down. And as I'm reviewing, what should I include in this part? I'll just go through a bunch of minutes that was shot. And those are basically my thoughts that go into my head as I'm reviewing something that I played or performed. And a lot of times I would just choose, you know what, I'm just going to annotate that directly. And because I think it's not shown very much. I think for a lot of genres, but the classical music genre and performance related genres, jazz, stage, performative genres, they're very sensitive in terms of presenting what's polished, and there's that tradition, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But it's kind of rare to understand and be exposed to the psyche of a performer, or the process, maybe the less glamorous bits leading up to a performance or leading up to writing a piece. And to me, I don't know why, but that really interests me. It's kind of like walking into a bakery, instead of just focusing on the final product and eating the bread. I think it's always cool to see the process of, that's how the dough was made, and there's someone pounding the dough, and it goes into the oven and all of that.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like I'm sure every artist gets the question, like, how do you do it? I remember there's this story about Oscar Peterson, and somebody went to take a lesson with Oscar, and they sit down, and Oscar had two pianos set up, and they play a little, and Oscar, it's like, oh, okay, that's nice. So what did you want to know? And the guy was so excited. It's like, Oscar Peterson is a big hero. He says, well, I want to know how you improvise. Like, how do you do it? What are you thinking? And Oscar sat back, and he looked really thoughtful, and he says, here's what I do. This is what I'm thinking. What I do is I just play one note right after the other. And that was it.
Simple. Oh, great answer. Wow.
But he wasn't trying to it's like, he doesn't think about it. He's just in the moment playing. So I think the point is, like, it's interesting, like, you're giving really detailed sort of thoughts on this is what I'm thinking.
Right. But I actually, that's what I'm thinking as I'm reviewing it.
Sure.
Not as
but while you're during it.
During it, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
But I'm quite a heady person, so I'm learning, and I think I'm getting better as the months go by. But again, going back to the point of how it's a cultural shift to learn how to just embrace the feeling of improvising and being in the moment and creating something in the moment. I'm learning to quiet a lot of these voices that quite frankly hold me back, and would hold anyone back that's trying to create something just completely present and with flow, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? I mean, you've been improvising all your life, right?
Even now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Right. Was it something that you were conscious of, or that it just was something natural to you?
I feel like it was natural, and I think it started because my dad showed me fake books, and he showed me how to play chords at a very young age, and so with that, it's like, I don't have to play these exact notes, and I can play this, all these different inversions. I can play this in different ways, and that, I think, that was the bug, that got it going. And when I went to college, I studied jazz composition. I just got totally bit by the jazz bug, and I loved it. It feels so free. Or, well, it can be free, but it can also be very humbling. It doesn't go so well. But I just enjoyed that. And it's funny because I have friends here at work, and they play music, and they're great musicians, but it's like, I'm in this 80s band, and I've got the exact sound, and I play it exact this way, and I go, why is that? I don't want to play it. Like they already the original artist already did the definitive copy. Like I want to know, selfishly or not, what spin can I put on it? So that was, for me, that was the thing. I'd almost rather make it up than play the exact thing, you know. So I don't know. That's just me.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious about musicians that have been improvising and creating music since they were much younger, and what their attitude is like regarding it. Because to me, going back to the cultural aspect of it, the attitude, the approach, that's really what influences how you improvise or how you compose. I think more than actual musical skill, because you really have to get over yourself in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and you know, I think one of the interesting things on your channel are your series As Digested By.
Yeah.
Because you go into this unexplored territory, you know, you like you mentioned earlier, genres or different deep dives on composition and that sort of thing. And one of the things we started talking about is getting into synthesizers.
Yeah,
so
totally.
You know, you've moved over into a different dimension with music. And also improvisation, because a lot of synthesis, there's a lot of improvisation in there.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
And serendipity, you know, and it's like, who's really in charge here? Is it the synthesizer, or am I part of this?
It's just a collaboration, I think.
Yeah.
Of all different kind of elements that are involved in music making, whether it's the instrument that you're using, what you're familiar with in terms of just pure musical ideas, or your environment that has nothing to do with you or the instrument that you're playing, but just your surroundings. All of these things have to just collaborate with each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, being exposed to synthesizers has really created this massive shift in how I approach music, how I approach sound, how sensitive I am to different timbres, how curious I am about different types of sounds that I can create, through synthesizers. Because I've really been exclusively tied to acoustic instruments, and even when I was dealing with electronic instruments, just the one setting, you know, the piano.
Right.
And it's been a journey breaking away from that, but I feel like I'm on the verge of really getting deep into something that I feel immensely curious about. More sounds, different kinds of sounds, sound design, different types of just sound.
Well, I loved the video where you were visiting Andrew Wong and Adam Neely, and you took one of Andrew's little modular bits and you composed and improvised to it. That was really interesting to watch.
So I took that, I recorded it onto my Zoom and took it home. I first transcribed it to just understand. I really liked it, but I didn't understand what was going on and why me being having the personality that I have, I just wanted to try playing it instead of just listening to it. So I wrote it down, tried to learn the odd rhythm and the odd sequence of notes, and then I analyzed it and thought, oh, this type of scale can work over it. Let's try improvising over it, and it's super unpredictable.
Sure.
So what would improvising over such an irregular pulse like that be like? And I tried it, and sometimes I would fall flat on my face, and sometimes I would come up with something that I thought sounded cool, and just in normal fashion, I recorded it onto video and turned it into a little exploration video about irregular pulses. I think that's what I titled it.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But since then, also I've learned a lot more about synthesizers and synthesis in general, and it's something that I plan to learn a lot more about. Just because the idea of having access to creating a sound from scratch or modifying a sound in a way that I would like for a certain composition or a certain kind of musical idea. Also adding more expression to a sound. These things, to be honest, I haven't really thought much about, and maybe didn't need to. Earlier on, you mentioned that, for example, a violinist or a horn player is committed to one note, and they're responsible for the note from when you first play it until you finish it. Whereas a pianist, you play the note, and of course you're handling when you release it and all of that, but what the instrument does with that note once you play it, before you take your finger off, that's really out of your control beyond certain, acoustic elements or with the pedal, things like that. But really, it's about how you press the key and then take it off. But the fact that with different knobs or wheels or different settings, I can control something beyond that, to me is fascinating.
Yeah.
Totally fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did the Synth Space tour here before we started. So
that was really great.
Did you have anything that any of these stuck out to you in particular?
Man.
It may be overwhelming.
You know that the one on the left there on the bottom, the one that you said was weird with
the
knobs?
CS30, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the sequencer.
That was really, for some reason, that I liked the sound of it, and I liked the layout on top. And also, I think it's this one, the bottom one here.
Oh, the motif?
Yeah.
The black one?
The black one, yeah.
Okay.
That one seemed very, very powerful and intuitive. Let me think. I really liked this one as well.
Oh, the CP80?
Yeah, that was fun.
It is fun. I always tell people that's probably the thing I play the most.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah.
It feels alive because there's the mechanicalness of a piano.
Yeah.
And you feel that back in your fingers. The instrument vibrates back to you.
It was just very pleasurable and fun to play.
Yeah.
So those were, as I think, and those are maybe the few ones that I actually tried. But in terms of me having my mind blown, was that.
Oh, the VL.
Yeah. The demos that you played, they sound real, but extra real.
Yeah.
In a way that, what was the term that you used? Electro.
It's
synth, acoustic.
Syncoustic. The Dr. Manny Fernandez term.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great. I did not know that something like that would be possible, but it just my gut reaction to what I heard was new.
Yeah.
For a synthesizer, so that was great.
Yeah, and it was cool because we explored like 4 or 5 different synthesis methods from the subtractive synthesis and in the CS series and the CS80 FM in the DXs, physical modeling.
I learned so much from your explanations, and I'm a slow learner, by the way, and so I really need a specific type of breakdown for me to understand something. And I think that's why maybe some people, from the comments that I read, find certain videos that I post useful.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a slow learner, I need to really churn through the material in a painstaking way, and go through a bunch of steps in order to simplify it in a way that makes sense to me.
Right.
And that process takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and the result of it, though, I come out on the other end understanding it a bit more
Sure.
in my own way. And I need it to be simple for me to understand it. So when I present it in reverse, I think it's useful to people that are also similar to me, that need something broken down in a simple way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So going back to the tour, how you explained certain things to me was great, because
thank you.
it started to make sense. Yeah. And you're so good. You're
Thank
well
you.
versed at all of the keyboards. It was really fun to observe.
Well, thanks. No,
Yeah.
that's nice. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a passion for it. And
Yeah, totally. It's
I'm
great.
into
It's
it,
great
so.
to see.
It's fun. It's fun to share, and it's fun to share with you because you're doing all these explorations. As your channel says, you're doing all sorts of things. Kind of, I had this. You have this base, and then just I want to explore this for a while. I want to check this out.
Yeah,
And when you started getting into synthesizers, I go, oh, that's great. Like, here's someone who can really, take it. I'm just learning about this, but yeah, you have that thorough understanding and can relate it to somebody. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, I thought one thing we could do, we have now I know you have the Reface CP,
Yes.
and we brought out the Reface CS because I think it's a powerful synthesizer, but it's relatively straightforward in what you can do with it. It is a subtractive synthesizer, as we talked about, but it also has multiple forms of synthesis. It actually has 5 synthesizers in one. So I thought maybe we could just play a little bit and explore it, and that might be kind of fun.
Totally. Is it on?
Let's see. Oh no, it has a. There we go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Colors.
Yeah. So I'm going to start. The kind of the core of the instrument is this, what is called type area, and the oscillator type kind of tells you what mode it's in, what kind of synthesis it's doing. It's subtractive. It has subtractive elements in that each oscillator will run through the filter and then through the amplifier and then effects. So it always goes through that path, but the oscillator itself can change depending on what you're doing. And then these two knobs, texture and mod, will be different depending on which type you're on. So they can do some very, very different things. And that's where the fun exploration is. So there you go. And it is polyphonic, so you can play chords. But if you don't want to play chords...
So how many voices?
8.
Wow. So that I start here.
Okay.
Does this affect how something is treated over time, or just the cutoff
Just
consistently?
Just consistently.
Consistently, okay.
Yeah. So if you want to affect how the filter changes over time, there's this slider here called the EG slider. So in this position, it's controlling amplitude over time, which crossfades into filter over time as you move it to the top. So now it's just doing the filter. And if you don't want that vibrato, we can take that down.
And the delay is there because
Delay
we have
is here,
the rate and the depth. What I was playing around with the CP88 last week was I would use the delay wheel.
Okay, yeah.
And have the depth all the way up, so that it would become almost like a looper.
Yeah.
But then when I changed the time, wheel,
Mm-hmm.
whatever glitch that happens, it would register.
Yeah, it'd be recorded into the
Yeah.
loop. Yeah.
And then if I used, what I use is the chromatic percussion setting,
Okay.
with the pitch all the way up
Okay.
and distortion high. And when I play the one of the highest pitches, the delay that's captured is this thuddy sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
and-
it can be, if you're doing so like a vibraphone or a glockenspiel type sound,
Mhm.
and you add distortion, you probably start adding so many harmonics that eventually they wrap back down
Yeah.
into the frequency spectrum.
And so the sounds that I was getting into the delay were beat-like.
Oh,
so
okay.
I just did I just put out a lo-fi as digested by video,
Oh, nice.
which is a two-parter, because the first part is, I recorded me making my first beat
Mhm.
with Logic, and the second part will be, can I create something that is beat-like with just the keyboard, and I'm using the CP88, and I just recorded a bunch of stuff with this type of function and this type of play at the keyboard, and I was really into it, and I thought some of the sounds that I captured were really cool and new to me, and I liked them, so it'll be in part 2.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Look into the ring modulator, because the CP has a ring modulator like the CS80 has, and you often use that to get
The
some
ring
cool,
modulator.
percussive type sounds.
And is that on the right
that is
or within the menus?
That's I think that's in the electric piano section, and it's one of the effects you can choose.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
I'll keep
and
that
you
in
get
mind.
the depth up, and then you can do those sort of chittering type speed up effects. But if you get it high enough, it'll generate sidebands that almost sounds like noise or a cymbal.
Okay.
And in fact, early synthesizers, people would synthesize bass drum and snare drum sounds. When we launched Reface, the CP, I did a demo with it where I made an analog drum set just with the Reface CP using those kind of techniques. So you could do that sort of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when I'm pressing these notes,
Oh, no. There you go.
oh, I guess not. I guess I heard something wrong. I heard a higher pitch than this F. I was thinking, why is that? But I don't think I heard it right. That's cool. And why is that happening again?
This
Because-
mode,
yeah.
I believe. This is an
Oh, I like
oscillator. Yeah, I think you're getting an oscillator sync here. Yeah.
What is this, looper?
Yeah, you can do looping on this. Oh, there's a mode we need to turn on the
I love the pitch wheel.
and then if you go, let's see if this will play.
Oh, wow. So it captured all of that.
Yeah. And if you want to overdub, you can.
Oh, so it didn't capture that?
No, it wasn't. It was just playing. Now it's recording.
Oh, so it's quite long.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
See that's basically the difference between a heavy delay used as a looper versus an actual looper.
Right.
The time.
Yes.
Because I tried to loop something that was a longer phrase on the CP88 with the delay, and
it only has a certain amount of time. But with this, it will. I can't remember. I think it can be really quite long. And there's a mode where you can set a certain key combo, and it will actually give you a click. So you
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you actually know exactly when.
So you know what
okay.
the beat is. Yeah.
Do you know how to do that?
Yes. Hold on. I can't remember. And the cool thing, that's just MIDI data. So whatever you change here, it'll keep playing your sequence.
Mm.
Okay. I like that. That's cool. Oh yeah, that's cool.
Nice.
There we go.
These controllers are solid. Like
Yeah.
When you click, it's not flimsy at all. So now,
Oh, I like that.
you can pause it. Ah, nice.
Yeah. So you've got, so basically, let's see, you've got the 5 different modes. So in this mode, you have a sawtooth waveform.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and on that one,
Is that
at the bottom you can play polyphonically. If you click up one, it gives you monophonic play.
Oh.
And as you go up further, it adds portamento. So you get this big glide between notes.
Oh, right now it's too much delay. So. Oh, I see. Oh. Nice.
Yeah.
8 voices. Great.
And then these two, I can't remember which one is which, but one of them adds a sub-octave, and then one of them adds a detune, so the sound gets giant. Okay, that's the sub-octave.
Oh, this one.
That adds the sub-octave.
Doesn't change after.
It does. It'll be a little bit more subtle. The mod one will be very apparent.
Maybe the octave. Ah.
Yeah.
And these are effects.
Yeah. So you can change from the delay to different.
What is that? Chorus?
Chorus and flanger.
Flanger. What is flanger?
Well, flange, the term comes from old school tape, reel-to-reel tape, because what they would do to get the effect is they would press their hand on the flange of a tape reel to slow it down. So you get two identical copies, and you get these phase discrepancies as they ran in and out of phase. So flanging is kind of that. It'll have this sort of syrupy delay, phasey type effect, but without really being a phase shifter type thing. So it's good for swirly jet engine-y things.
Jet engine-y. I like that. I like that a lot.
Nice. Huh.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man,
And if you get up up into here, you get into FM synthesis.
Okay.
So go ahead and play. There.
Oh.
These bell-like sounds. And then with the LFO, sometimes it's interesting to take it to the OSC area, which means it's modulating one of these special parameters. And you can set these very slow, but you can get these evolving. It kind of feels alive. I like that sound. That's good.
Wow.
It's kind of a haunting clock tower or
Yeah.
something. It's interesting.
I hear that in the background.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
that's a side product of the FM.
Whoa.
That's interesting.
It's almost like it's breathing.
Yeah. That's a really interesting sound. Oh, that almost had a plucked like.
Oh.
Wow.
See, with synthesizers, sometimes all you need is just one note.
Yeah.
And that, there's something to that.
That's why in Eurorack nobody really cares about polyphony. You could just, I have one source and I can do so many things with that.
Yeah.
It's a story of limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if I don't want limitations. I think limitations
are great.
lets you be more creative.
Yeah, totally.
Otherwise I'll never make a decision.
Totally. Yeah.
You
You need structure. You need a frame.
Yeah. I need rules to break.
Yeah. Yes. That's it.